Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Let's Code Along. In this episode, we are going to be getting into interaction. So we're going to be working on the clicking of this, having that slide out, and actually creating new notes and adding them to this view here. So what we need to first do is if we go back to our app.js, we're going to go here and we're going to actually add an event to here. So this what am I looking to say here? Anchor tag. When we click it, so we're going to use an on-click handler here. We want something to happen. Now, if you're new to React, you haven't probably seen this before. What we're doing here is we're binding our events right onto the actual elements, the JSX elements that we want, as opposed to putting them, if you've done a lot of jQuery, putting them in our code as like a, select the element on some event, do the thing. So what we need to do is we need to actually figure out what we want to call this first. So I'm going to go up here real quick here, and let's make this toggle. Well, it's not really toggle. It's like show sidebar, right? Something like this. Now, you'll notice that with ES6 classes, we do not put the comma here because it's not like an object. It's a special own syntax. Now, here's the cool thing in here. Now, there's lots of ways to do this, but this is just one way to do this. When we click on a link, there is a default action, so there will be an event that we need to prevent. So just follow along, and I'll explain what we're doing in a second. So what we're doing here is we are... when this is clicked, this is the function that gets called. This is an arrow function. Again, if you haven't seen or really understand arrow functions, check out my video on arrow functions. But basically, this callback will get past the event. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and call our sidebar here with that specific E so that up here, we can go ahead, and do this. We can say this.prevent default like that. Or sorry, not this. E.prevent default. And then down here we can say whatever we want, right? Console.log. Hey. So let's save that and let's see what happens. Now, if you haven't been doing this for a while, come back, make sure you're running gulp so that you have it all running up nice and well. So we have this here. It should have refreshed, but I'll always refresh it. And now if I click on this, we should see, hey, cool. Now, the reason we do it like this is because what we want to be able to do is we actually want to get access to the this keyword, and in this case, this should be our app. Now, there's a couple ways, and I want to show you first that this is properly bound at this point. So if I click here, we have our app object here. But it might be more common to see this called like this. Actually, it should be this.sidebar, show sidebar. Now there is a bit of a problem here. So if I save this, page is refreshed, and I click, hey still works. It's prevented the default because that gets passed along. But you'll notice that this keyword is no longer bound to our app class. And that's because it is not inside of these classes here. This keyword is not auto-bound. So a way to actually make sure that we bind it properly is to do this little callback trick here so that when this is executed, this is bound properly. Or if we did want to do it like this, the way you might be used to seeing it, let's do it like this. We actually have to bind our function. So every class has what's called a constructor. And this is what's called when the class is constructed. And inside of here, you would do something like this. You do this dot show sidebar dot binds, equals this dot show sidebar dot bind. Oh my goodness, this. Actually, there's one thing we need to do first. We need to call super. So inside of a class, you need to call the super class first. So in this case, the React component before we can access the this keyword to start altering our own class. So if we did it like this, this should work just fine. Get out of there. Come on. Boop. There you go. And actually, this is sort of the preferred way. This is what the React documentation says you should do it as. So we're going to do it like this, just so that we have sort of the most idiomatic way of doing things. Okay, so we've clicked the sidebar. We have the this keyword. What we want to do is we want to be able to grab a reference to this And I think in my CSS, I have a class of show that is just going to like slide it on over. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to add a reference on this element. So references allow us to sort of like be able to store and reference these elements for later use. So we're going to do this. And we'll call it this dot, well, I guess sidebar, right? Equals ref. Whoop. There we go. So if we're still, actually, let's console.log this again. If we go back, we should now see, if I click that and open this up, we see we have all these things, and we can see our sidebar right here. And there is this references thing, but we just haven't. We've just kind of put it right on the object there. I do want to point something out. So if you're doing any sort of React, the React dev tools, so we're going to be using this for the rest of this thing, are really good. So just go find the Chrome extension for the React dev tools. Opening this up gives you a view of what our React application looks like. So if you look at this, this is our app object. This is this thing that we've created, and it's rendered down here into that element. And then all of these other elements are just the HTML we've been working on. And you can see sort of our callbacks and stuff like that in here. So I'm not going to use the console that much anymore. We're going to mostly stick to the React Dev Tools. And the cool thing about this is that we will be able to see stuff like state and all kinds of things that we apply to our elements. We haven't done that yet, and in fact, we're going to actually have to do that now, or in a second, but we'll be able to see that stuff here. Okay, so we have a reference to this element here. So if I go this.sidebar, that refers to our sidebar. And actually, what we want to do here is we want to go this.sidebar.classList. So we're using, actually, I'll bring up the docs for you here. Class list. Well, we need toggle, but we're going to use class list here. Class list allows us to add elements and remove elements from, add classes and remove classes from our elements. And in this case, we're going to add a class. We're going to add the class of simply just show. Oh, no. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Typed it all wrong. I think that's it. So let's try that. Let's go back here. Check this out. My mouse battery seems to be dying a bit there. Click. Amazing. And actually, let's go ahead and let's do the close as well. So let's find that button. And you know what? We could just use this same function if we change this to toggle. We could use the same function for this down here. And we don't have to bind it again because it's bound up there. That should work, I think. We go back here, click this, great. We click that, amazing, so good. Okay, cool. Let's get a note going, and then I think that'll be it for this video because we're gonna get into some Firebase, I think, next. Okay, so we have this form here, and it has a title and some text area and a submit button. So what we need to do is we need to add a onSubmit, submit event to this form that is going to track when we submit the form and actually digest all the information. So what we're going to need to do for that is let's come up with the name of something. Let's call it this dot, I guess, add note, because it'll be sort of what's being used to add a note. Back up in our constructor, we will say this dot add note equals, this dot add note dot bind this. Okay, so we have that ready to go. So on submit, that should happen. It's going to get past the event. I always love to just like add the thing first and then see it in action. So we'll prevent it from doing its thing. And then we'll go console.log. I guess just submitted. Submitted. Yeah, that's right. Oops, there we go. Okay, so we open it, blah, 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 submit. Well, we're going back to the console, but yeah, there it is. Perfect, cool. So we have all this stuff going on. What we need to do now is we need to actually be able to grab the text from both of those things and actually build up some sort of object. So this two things we're going to do first. So up in our constructor, we need to set some initial state. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this dot state, oopsie doodle, equals an object that has a property called notes. And that's going to be initially initialized to an empty array because there are no notes. But what will actually end up happening is that inside of here, there'll be a whole bunch of objects that are like title is going to be equal to whatever, and then text will be equal to whatever as well. So we need to start it like that. And then every time we add a new note, we're going to grab this current note state, push something onto it, and then set it again. So what we're going to do down here is we need to now set the ability to grab these values. So again, what we're going to use is we're going to just use some references. We'll say on this one, we'll use ref equals. So the way that the ref works is it's a callback. It used to be, and I kind of liked it before like this, where it was a string and you would reference what is the thing. So I could be like, I don't know, note title, and then you could grab it from there. However, it is now idiomatic in the React docs to use these callback functions. And I haven't quite found like where they changed that and like why specifically they changed that. If you do know why, please throw it in the comments. I would love to read the reasoning about that, or like what it really solves. But anyways, similar to our how we used to do up here before we changed, the ref takes a callback that gets past a reference, so basically this element, and then we can just set it to something. So I can say, I'm going to set it to, well, I guess not note title, like that. Actually, let's use that. So that we'll be able to just grab a reference to that later and then do something with it. And the same thing down here. We're going to set ref equals ref this dot note text, and we'll make sure that that equals that ref as well. So let's just see this in action real quick. Are we logging this? No, let's just console.log this up here. Just like that, so we can actually just see it really easily. We click, we get this, I type some stuff, gibberish, I hit enter, take a look, and there we go. So we're almost there actually. So what we need to do is let's build a new note. So we'll go const note equals just an object that has the title that will be this dot note title dot value. Now the value is actually really important here because we can't just say this dot note title, because that refers to the whole element, not the value we want. If you open up this element and you take a look inside of here, you can see this is just a regular DOM element, and further down we have the value. So we just want to grab the text in there. And we want to do the same thing for the actual text. So note text dot value as well. Amazing. So there's two more things we have to do here. We need to take this original state and we need to add to it. So in React, the state should be something that you don't mutate. We should be making copies of it and we should be pushing to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const original state, or actually let's say new state, new notes equals, and there's a couple ways we can actually do this. I like to do array dot from, so we're making an array from something, this dot state dot notes. So we are copying the notes array. We are not trying to push onto this property here. We're going to copy this and then we're going to add our note. So we can say new notes dot push our note. And then down here, here's the cool thing. So with React, the way that it works, the way that it re-renders the page is, well, there's a couple ways, but anytime this, set state is called, so if we say this dot set state, what will happen is it will actually re-render the page. So it'll take a look at what's new and what has changed and actually change out and switch out those things. So if we say notes, new notes, we'll see this in action. Now, we actually won't see this in action just yet because we actually haven't rendered anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly jump back to Chrome. I'm going to click Add. I'm going to go click that. We've submitted. If you jump back to your React Dev Tools, you'll now see in our application, so this is the only component we have so far in our application, we have this notes array. And if I click this a couple more times, you'll see that they just start to add up. Now, we aren't doing any fancy stuff like making this slide out and clearing this or anything, but that's fine for now. We have all this stuff going on. That's pretty cool. So what I'd actually like to do is let's actually take this stuff here and let's make it into its own component so that we can actually pass in maybe some props to this. So pass in the data and we'll be able to show that onto the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new file in our source here. Let's call it notescard.js. We need to import React from here, or React in here. And what we need to do is we need to export something. And for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to export a presentational component. What that means is that we can export default, just a function that gets passed some data, some props, and it can simply just return some HTML for us. And that HTML in our case is just going to be this. Now it's actually just JSX, but this is just a simple function that gets passed some data and it's allowed to just show some stuff on the page. More importantly, we're going to assume that this props, or let's call it prop because it's just a singular, is going to be one of these objects that we get back. Actually, I should add one here. This is a title. This is some text. Hit submit. So it's going to be a prop that is basically just this object that has title and text. So what we can do is we can do this. So using these curly brackets, this is sort of the place where we can put in expressions inside of React. So I can say prop, we should call it props. Props.title. Oh, actually, it's going to be passed in as something. So maybe we'll do props.note.title. I'll show you where that comes in shortly. And props.note.text. So we have this functional component, or sorry, not functional, presentational component, or sometimes referred to as a stateless component, that is going to simply take some data and just display it. It has no function to it yet, and maybe it might not actually, because we can do some stuff up here. We'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete that there, and we actually have to tell our application to actually render these cards. So two things we need to do first. I'm going to save this, make sure that's saved. And in here, I'm going to go up to the top. And where we have our React import, I'm going to import our note card from, and then this is cool./notes card. So we're just importing this exported function. And what we're going to do is down here, we're going to do a pretty common trick. So our initial state is this notes array. And when we add a new note, we're just pushing new notes onto it. So in order for us to render all of our notes, we can do this. We can say this dot state dot notes, oops, not bytes, notes dot map. So map is a function that will map over or iterate over all of the elements in an array and return some sort of changed version of it, a transformed version of it. In our case, what we're going to get passed is each individual note, and what we actually want to return here, I'm just doing it like this. You could make this smaller if you wanted, but we're going to return note card, oops, and we're going to pass some props. So props are just basically attributes that we come up with that we put onto our cards, or in this case, our components. So what's going to happen is this is going to iterate over for each one of the notes. It's going to pass that note as a property called notes, as a property called note to our note card here, and then we should get some text. Now, if there are no notes to begin with, what's going to happen is it will display nothing. There's nothing for it to show. But if I go ahead and add, does this work? well, and I close this, you can see, yes, it does work. There is a problem here. Warning, each child in an array or an iterator must have a unique key prop. So we actually have to put a special prop here called key, and we need to give it a unique ID, a unique name. So and what I always do is I do something like note dash, and then what you can do is map gets two things passed to it, the array value and then an index. So I always just do like that. So if we save that, refresh this, click this, does this work? I hope so. I hit add note. Ooh, look at you go. Oh, did the keys not work? Each child in an array or iterator must have a key. Oh, do I have to put it on down here, I wonder, actually? Let's try that. I guess just key. I always forget where you have to put it. Unknown key. Key's not a problem. Well, that's just a little warning for now. It's not a big deal. We'll figure that out in a later video. Actually, maybe let's take a look at these things here. Most props on the JSX element are passed the component whether blah, 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 ref key. For instance, attempting to access this.props key from a component is not defined. You should not. Oh, but we did that. Oh, is this not working properly? Hold on, let's take a look here. Let's dive in. Is it not going to let us do that because of the error? So we take a look. We have it here, key note. Yeah. It has a key. It's unique. Key is not a prop. Oh, that's because we're still just accessing it there. Warning, key is not a prop. Trying to access it is undefined. You know what? I'll worry about that later. What we should worry about is just cleaning this up real quick so that we can get going on to the Firebase stuff. So, and we'll fix this in a second. So what we should do is after we've kind of submitted, we should actually have this clear out and we should have that slide away. So let's just do two more things here before we move on. So we have this rendering. So what we should have happen is after this is all done, we should clear out our form inputs. So we can say this dot note title dot value equals just an empty string, and same thing for the text. An empty string, and then we can call the show sidebar because that will go ahead and change our what am I trying to say? Toggle our thing. But sidebar's got this prevent default. That's probably going to throw an error because we're not passing anything. It is going to throw an error. So I think what we could do is we could just maybe make it a default value. But what would the default value have? I wonder, is it sneaky / poor practice just pass that other event down? Yeah, it works. Oh, and the error is gone too. I'm not sure why that. Well, maybe I didn't refresh properly. Anyways, well, it all works. Cool. Okay, so in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to get into working with Firebase. So actually, if you take a second now, think about this. We have a working application, right? Testing. This is a test note. And we hit submit, and it adds the notes. Because it's using Flexbox, it's already kind of flexible, ready to go. We can see our notes here. Everything comes up, and that's how it's ordered. Now, it's kind of ordered in reverse order. So, or it's ordered in, it's being pushed on, so it's not quite like the newest card. So if we actually want it to be the newest cards first, if we go down here, we can just do a dot reverse on our map, and it will put them in the right order. So the first one won't matter. So I'll say this is the first card. Yeah, I won't put a thing. And then if I put another one, it should be the first one that appears to the left. This is the second card. Cool, perfect, works great. So in the next video, we're going to learn about Firebase. We're going to set up Firebase, get it initialized, and then we'll be able to actually push some data to Firebase and actually have it come up. Yeah, so join me in the next video where we'll get into Firebase.